after being a farm worker and earning less than $1 and a very hard life, very hard. Both my parents worked. And my mother really was the one that said, you got to get an education. If you're ever going to get out of poverty, you got to get an education. Well, what happened is, you know, as a young woman, I fell in love with the best dancer there was because I loved to dance. So we would go to the Mexican dances every Saturday night. And he was a farm worker. And come my senior year, my mother reminded me, if you stay here, you're going to marry him, you're going to have kids, you're going to stay in poverty, you're going to be a farm worker's wife. Thought really hard about that. And that also my senior year was, seemed like everything was happening my senior year. It was the first year that I wasn't working in the fields. I had gotten a job at JCPenney's selling shoes and selling patterns for clothes, how to make clothes. And the reason that was is because in our senior year there was a class where you could transition into a job, so you could sort of learn what the job market was like. Well, I knew what the job market was like. It wasn't very good for us. So I worked at Penny's, and it was the day after the senior prom. I had had no sleep, but everybody got up to go cut asparagus. I got up to, well, that was about 4 in the morning. I didn't have to get up that early, but I got up at 7 to get to work by 8 or 9. And I had well, I don't know if I had a hangover. I don't think so. But anyway, I was not up to par, let's say that. And I'm like sleeping, filing these patterns, and you know, by number and by McCall's and simplicity, you know, and I'm just like trying to stay awake. And here come these two Chicanos, Tomas and his brother. Can't remember, Sandoval was, I think, their last name. And they introduced themselves, and they said they were recruiters from the University of Washington. And did I want to go to college? And they would help get me there. They would help find me a place to live. I could get a scholarship. I could get a loan. And did I want to do this? And here's an application. Filled out the application, packed up everything I had in a little VW Bug, and off we went to the University of Washington. Ended up at Lander Hall on the Chicano floor, and that's how I got here, because I had a choice to make, and because my mother was very insistent that I get an education, and that I, as the oldest of 7 kids, set the example for the rest. Sort of worked for the rest of the kids, sort of not, but I did get my BA. It took a long time to get it because a lot of things happened in between, but it was really because of my mom and the recruiters that had a dedication to come in to the valley and recruit us kids, you know, get us out of the farm worker fields. So I really thank them for that.
Can you talk a little bit more about, I guess, just issues regarding sexism you experienced, I guess, being involved in that?
Sure. Well, a lot of us, of course, I joined MECHA very early on, as well as the Brown Berets. Matter of fact, Tomas, who was my recruiter, was in the Brown Berets, so I joined the Brown Berets. And a lot of the young women that I knew from the Valley also joined. And, you know, everybody was learning. Everybody was learning. It was a time of certainly a lot of education and learning experience. And there were some great things MECHA did, but on the woman question, they didn't know, you know, from their head from their toes on the woman question. And so didn't we. I mean, you know, we didn't know. We were learning as well as we were going along. And we were assigned to do the cooking and the typing, not to talk at mass meetings, not to talk at demonstrations. That wasn't our role. And even when we joined MECHA with the mass protest against the Vietnam War, or the student strikes we had on campus, it wasn't our role to speak. And that got old pretty fast, because I am my mother's daughter. My mother is a very independent, strong, very opinionated person. She led many organizing efforts against the discrimination in the school system. And when my sister got hit on her hand by a teacher because she spoke Spanish, my mother went down there and cussed the shit out of the teacher and went after the principal. And she had a gun in her pocket. I mean, you know, my mom is heavy duty. She doesn't take any shit. So I am my mother's daughter, but I try to be more reasonable if I can. And you know, like when my brother got beat up, you know, she'd go down there, go into the fields, grab the father of the son who beat up my brother and said, "You tell your son to back off or I'm coming back for you." That was my mom. You know, she just didn't take any shit. So I think some of that rubbed off definitely on me. But it was also a time of the women's movement too. It was a rise of the women's movement. So we're all becoming very aware of the sexism and the division between how society views men and what men are supposed to do, and how society views women and what women are supposed to do. I mean, we are products of this society. Can you say it's a man's issue? Well, yes, in a sense it is, but it's also a societal problem. It's institutionalized, just like racism is. So anyway, getting back to Mecha though, so that got old pretty fast, and we started demanding more rights. And I think for myself, I chose a different route because I wasn't getting anywhere with Mecha. So I did some other things as well. I stayed active with Mecha for a period of time, but then I did part ways.